You're listening to the Access Success Podcast, produced by Access U, a division of Access Advertising and Public Relations. Hey, let's do something big. I'm your host, Rachel Schneider. Welcome to the Access Success Podcast, where we highlight important topics focused on education in every form it takes. We've talked to quite a few social media content creators and artists on the show this season already, but there is another art that requires amazing creativity and precision: the culinary arts. So today on the show, we've got a transplant from Chicago. He's a chef and a Roanoke 40 Under 40 winner with a passion for connecting the community through his delicious, unique creations at a locally beloved coffee shop right here in town. So please welcome Quincy Randolph, culinary director and managing partner of Roasters Next Door, also known as R&D Coffee. Welcome to the show, Quincy.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here. You're really good at that intro. As an aspiring podcaster myself, I have a lot of work to do.
Oh, well, thank you. Practice makes perfect. I think we've done about 40 episodes of the show so far, so I can say that I don't get it right every time, proudly.
Enough.
But yeah, I've had practice, so thank you so much. Yeah. Before we get into it, just tell us more about yourself. I mean, when did you first know that you wanted to be a chef?
You know, it's such a tough question for me because there wasn't this one defining moment. Food's always been integral part of my life. My grandparents cook, my mom cooks, my dad cooks, but none of them are chefs or cooks or things of that nature. But food has always been our household, from scratch cooking. And slowly over time, I just started, reading cookbooks at a very early age. I was 8, 9, 10, reading some very thick culinary arts cookbooks, Escoffier, kind of French fine dining.
And then trying it out in the kitchen?
Kind of. Once I got a little bit older, I actually thought I was going to be a pastry chef at first, but I'm not. Some people think because I do donuts and things that I am, but I'm very much not a pastry chef. But I was making creme brulees and chocolate creme brulees and pot de cremes out of this book called Dessert University. And it was just fascinating stuff. And then, of course, I'm of the age where I grew up with the Food Network and also culinary TV. My dad and I watched a ton of Hell's Kitchen for no real reason besides entertainment. But eventually I just enrolled in my high school program at 14 and kind of excelled more than the other students, honestly.
And they had a culinary arts program at your high school?
Yeah, well, it was a trade school. I went to Atlee High School in Richmond, and then it was a district trade school, so I'd hop on a bus and then go to, and it was a beautiful facility with state-of-the-art ovens, stainless steel tables, things of that nature.
So
really,
cool.
Really cool. And I did that for 2 years, and then there's a third year, and I was like, I don't need it. I don't need a senior year of high school. I was actually a pretty good student. My parents are both teachers. Mm-hmm. So we were able to work some things around, and I finished high school in 3 years and immediately went to culinary school at 16 years old.
What?
Yeah.
Which culinary school again?
So I went to a culinary school in Louisville, Kentucky. I wanted to go to the CIA in New York. That's the big premier culinary school that everyone's heard about, but it was a little bit out of my budget, and I'd earned some scholarships to Sullivan University. So I went out there and did that for 2 years, and then I actually started my culinary career in Louisville, cooked there for a few years, cooked in Cincinnati for a little while, cooked in Chicago, and that's where I really cut my teeth in some of the country's top restaurants, and then made my way to Roanoke.
Yeah. So, how did your professional journey evolve, especially being so young when you were thrust into that professional environment?
I was just really ambitious and really focused, and nowadays I tell people kind of jokingly, kind of seriously, that I'm just a specialist. I'm really good at things relating to restaurants and the food service industry, and I have actually pretty good common sense, street smarts.
Yeah.
But outside of that, my math and science and that kind of education kind of topped out at a high-end high school level. So I'm just a specialized individual who kind of went all in on their passion at a very early age and has just kind of grown from there.
Yeah. Well, and then you guys made the switch then to coffee, obviously. Or tell us about how R&D Coffee got started and what brought you to Roanoke.
Yeah, so that's almost kind of a two-parter. So my brother is the founder of R&D Coffee. He moved here after graduating from VCU when his then girlfriend, now wife, got into the Radford PT program, and he kind of founded the company and started doing, pop-ups and farmers markets and things. I think back in either late 2017 or early 2018. So that's technically when the company was formed. But it was very sporadic and very kind of every once in a while. Then he opened up a more consistent pop-up actually in the Wasena neighborhood next to where our full service space is now. And then in 2019, he recruited me from Chicago to kind of come and open up the brick and mortar space using some of my restaurant and culinary expertise because, I was a chef out in Chicago trying to shop around a business plan, 21 years old, hey, loan me $500,000 to open a 24-seat tasting menu restaurant. And it took me a while to learn that that's not how the real world works. But I moved from Chicago to Roanoke to partner with my brother to kind of open R&D as we know it today in 2019.
Okay, so shop opens in 2019. What was your first year in business like, and just being in the Roanoke area versus being a chef in Chicago? I'm sure it was very different.
It's extremely different. It's kind of a blur. I would say the first year almost just feels like a very, very, very long opening day, right? So the opening day, we were incredibly busy, which we were thankful for. Or at least we felt incredibly busy. Let me rephrase it. We're busier now on a daily basis than we were on opening day, which is great. But at the time, it was just my brother and I behind the counter. Neither of us had been baristas before. My brother had a lot of experience coffee roasting and in the industry on that end. I had a lot of food service experience, of course, being a chef, but neither of us had made coffee professionally on an espresso machine.
Oh, wow.
So there's a huge line out the door, and at the time Vice Mayor Joe Cobb was there, and a lot of community people, and the support was incredible. Everyone was very friendly, patient, and understanding, but it was hectic. The first year was just a lot of hecticness, trying to figure things out on the fly, trying to stay afloat, and it was really just mostly my brother and I, and then we hired a couple of people, and then just trying to grow a little bit every day.
Yeah. And in that time as well, you were also gaining popularity as a chef, so much so that you were on Beat Bobby Flay last summer.
Yeah.
On Food Network.
On Food Network.
How was that?
The Food Network.
The Food Network that you grew up watching.
Yeah.
What an experience.
It was incredible. I think, so what a lot of people don't know, because it predates my Roanoke time, is that was actually my second time on the Food Network.
Oh.
5 years ago, so while I was in Chicago, I actually had the opportunity to do Guys Grocery Games. So I think it's season 18, episode something, Meals from the Middle Madness. You can go see a very, very young-looking Quincy Randolph pushing around a grocery cart frantically through the aisles of Flavortown.
Through the aisles of Flavortown.
Having a grand old time, honestly. That was actually when I learned that I really like to do media things.
Oh, okay.
I used to be a very shy kid. I gained some confidence through cooking. And then I kind of had this, I would say the first time it was almost this random opportunity to do Guys Grocery Games. And then I really liked it. And then I started putting myself out there more and trying to kind of intentionally put myself on the radar for TV spots. And then that's kind of how the Beat Bobby Flay thing came about a few years later. And I hope there'll be more in the near future.
I'm sure there will be. I mean, speaking of confidence and that content creation angle as well, how did that growth of confidence and that yearning to create also then help the business? Because your social media, I have to say, is spectacular. I love seeing your videos with all the new recipes you guys try. I think the newest one I watched was a bacon latte.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Oh man, the latte or the content creation?
I mean both, because it's like I said, I mean it looks amazing online. It makes people say, "Oh, I want to try that." So how did you find out that was a great pull for your business?
Yeah, well, just to clarify, we don't actually serve that. We might do it as a special. Where to begin? So my brother and I have always been big into the idea of content creation, and the more we've watched business as a whole grow, just whether from the corporate level or from the small business level, we've just learned that growing a brand and creating content is so important that if we can't afford to, hire someone like Access to help us with it, then we need to start doing it ourselves and taking it very seriously. Now, I'm very lucky that my brother and I make an excellent pair to where I love a camera, and then my brother loves being behind the camera and has learned a lot and things of that nature. So we're able to create a lot of, I would say, decently high-end content with a very small team in-house, and has helped us bolster our social media presence. And then from there, it's just trying stuff. I mean, honestly, your guests or, the people who are fans of your brand, they love to just see organic, somewhat relatable content. So whether it's me making silly lattes that I'm trying out for the first time on camera and then kind of reacting to, or whether it's like really nice stylized photography of various like food and drink that can be found at our cafe, we just try to make sure it all feels very organic and authentic, and hopefully that resonates with our guests.
And on top of that, I mean, it looks delicious. Like, some of the recipes I see at first, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how that's going to taste. But then you make it, and the quality of the video is so good. You get those close-up shots that make people really, like, you can see the ridges in the bacon, and you're like, oh, that looks amazing.
TikTok has taught us a lot. Gotta get those nice tight shots. And stuff.
The money shot, the money shot. Well, what are some of your favorite menu items and coffee creations over the years?
Oh, man. So we never made a video about this because this is when we first opened, and I think it would do better now than before, because I think we've earned some trust from the community. But when we first opened, I'm actually infatuated with the flavor combination of like chocolate and seaweed. Specifically nori, so like the seaweed that typically is used in like sushi rolls and things of that nature.
Okay.
I know, I can see it on your face. You're very hesitant.
Well, I've never tried it. How did this come about? When did you first have that?
In Chicago, I mean, most of like the super kind of off the wall flavor combinations are flavor profiles I've been built on from my time as a chef in Chicago. I was working at, I don't want to say experimental restaurants, but definitely restaurants that were kind of comparatively more on like the experimental end of flavor combinations in hate cuisine and things of that nature. So all this to say is, like, if you take seaweed, specifically nori, and kind of toast it, it has this very kind of like savory, sweet, slightly oceanic flavor profile to it, that I think actually pairs really well with like the richness of like dark chocolate. So we were doing like this dark chocolate seaweed brownie, which I think if you scroll far enough down on our Instagram page, you might be able to find a picture of it. And it was very decisive with our guests. Some people loved it. Some people tried it once and was like, that's not for me. And then some people were just like, you can never convince me to try this. Now that I think we've built up some more trust, I think more people will be willing to give it a shot. But I don't know. I like trying interesting things.
I do too. I'm willing to try anything just one time when it comes to food, especially if other people are like, okay, you never would have thought this would be good, but I'm a big fan of dark chocolate and I like the sweet salty combinations a lot of the time, so I feel like that's something I might like, but I would for sure try it if you guys brought it back.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. We just missed R&D's 4th birthday. By missed, I mean we didn't do anything special because I'm really bad at planning things like that.
Well, happy belated birthday,
thank you,
nonetheless.
Thank you. But next April, R&D will turn 5. And I'm hoping that, like, I'm going to start planning something like 6 months out. And I don't know if we'll do like a week long, what I consider to be R&D's greatest hits, because we change up our menu so often that, there are a lot of flavors and things that we've done as kind of like one-offs, or we'll do something hopefully to really kind of celebrate. Because I think, and especially in the restaurant industry, like every year is a milestone, but I think year 5 might arguably be the biggest milestone.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And aside from social media, I also understand that your creativity in the kitchen has led to your YouTube channel, and you guys have a new podcast coming out. I mean, tell us more about that and just the team and the other projects that you guys have going in terms of content creation.
Yeah, so I'm super big on content creation. So 2 kind of projects that we're kind of developing more simultaneously. I have a YouTube channel called Cafe with Q, which I think you've seen some snippets of. Some of the snippets go on Instagram, but full-length episodes, that's where I'm making silly lattes, maple bacon latte. I made a hot dog latte.
Hot dog latte.
Hot dog, yeah. Don't watch that one if you're a little squeamish. It's
with
like,
an actual hot dog?
Oh, yeah. Hot dog, bun, ketchup, mustard, pickles.
In a latte?
In a latte.
So, I have to ask, how was that?
Awful. Oh, spoiler alert. Yeah, so on Cafe with Q, I make weird coffee combinations. Sometimes they're recommended. Sometimes people are just trolling me or whatever. But it's not something I've made or tested before. It's just kind of like a one shot. Let's make this. Let's taste it. Let's give it a grade.
Sure.
And it's super fun. That is actually filmed by Riley Murtaugh. I hope I pronounced his last name correctly.
Yep, Riley Murtaugh.
And he's great to work with. And it's super fun. So that's great. And that's, again, YouTube, Cafe with Q. I think we just passed like 500 subscribers not too long ago. So a new channel, but kind of growing. And then I'm getting ready to launch a podcast called Rookie Restaurateur, which is going to be kind of like a hospitality up-and-coming business podcast. Business podcast makes it sound boring, but imagine just an opportunity to get down and speak with, emerging restaurateurs on like how they got into business, what's important, what's not important, and kind of like tips and insight that they would recommend to other people who want to start food service businesses, plus a little bit of tomfoolery, because you got to have a little tomfoolery in your podcast.
And I'm so excited for this because I don't think Roanoke gets enough credit for its food scene. If you go downtown or to other cities, you'll see so many chains, but the local businesses here that are creating really delicious food, like farm to table or just unique creations.
Right.
I haven't seen it in any other city I've lived in, like especially a small city like Roanoke.
I think for its size, Roanoke is outperforming what's expected, and I think it's hopefully going to start getting more credit for that. And I just want to be someone who's helping kind of push the narrative in a proper or a positive way about all the talented, food entrepreneurs who are out here doing big things in Roanoke.
Yeah, well, we can't wait to see that and tune in and listen to your new podcast. And I also wanted to ask, how have you and the team at R&D been able to get involved in the community, especially the Wasena neighborhood? Beautiful neighborhood here in Roanoke, but I understand it wasn't always that way, and it's been built up quite a lot over the past 10 years just from people becoming more involved, more businesses moving into the space that you guys are nearby. So what's that been like?
Yeah, and I don't want to take too much credit because we just have a small part. I think the developers, Brent Cochran and, the Garlands have done a lot to buy and renovate the properties and then to find young entrepreneurs who want to do business in that area. And I think that's super important. For us, we try to do a lot of community events. We do a lot of events with LEAP, the kind of like environmental and sustainability focused kitchen and nonprofit here. They do the Grand Inn Farmers Market, and then they do other events here in town. And we try to collaborate with other local businesses. We do things with Fleet Feet. We did like a Nitro for Nonprofits promotion where they pick the nonprofit and we donate the coffee, and then people can donate for a cup of coffee and just simple things like that. I also spend a lot of money at local small businesses, which don't need to really plug that, but that's the easiest way to kind of continue to support your community and things of that nature. So I don't know, you just have to believe in your community and then try to find some time in your day or within your business model to support and give back. And I think that's really important.
Absolutely. And I think supporting local businesses is something that's also such a part of Roanoke's culture because of all the local businesses and the support that we have here. Aside from that, what other advice then would you have for other entrepreneurs and restaurateurs, especially in that area? You said it yourself, you're a very ambitious young man. I mean, you've already done quite a lot for your culinary career. So what would be your advice to other 16-year-olds that are finishing high school super early and just want to go for it?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm qualified to give advice, to be honest with you. That said, I think one thing, and this is something I talk about a lot on my podcast, again, coming out soon, but historically, chefs are told, like, keep your head down and just work.
Yeah.
And that's kind of outdated old school advice, because I think
it's very Gen X, mentality, or baby boomer, just put your head down, work, and then, maybe you'll get rewarded, but just do it.
You got to be in the industry 10 years before you even open your own business, before you even think about it. I've had chefs tell that to me. And I think what really needs to happen is form a game plan earlier on. Make sure you're taking steps that are very aligned with your game plan, like very intentional steps. Like, don't just work, take very intentional steps. And I would say network and create content early. It doesn't really matter if your content's not that great. I mean, ideally you're working on it to make it better, right? Everybody's working on their content to make it better. And I don't think you need to wait until you're quote unquote somebody to start networking. I think establishing relationships and then also putting yourself out there more are these days equally as pivotal to someone who wants to be a chef or at least a restaurateur than how good the food you put on the plate is.
Great advice. Yeah, and I think that translates to other industries, though, as well, because as a young journalist, I mean, my first story was terrible. My first live shot that I did on TV was awful. But
it's hard being on camera and things.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, if you start young and you just get used to it, you get the reps in. That's what we were always told, too, is just you got to get the reps. The reps. But the first step is just taking the first step and putting yourself out there to do it. So I think that's excellent advice. And then in terms of, it goes back to that saying, like, it's not always what you do, it's who you know. But I think that ties in with knowing your community and being open to learning from others and getting involved. So, yeah, I think that's excellent. I would just take the words right out of my mouth. Since this is the Access Success podcast, what we always ask people as well is if you could share a recent success story, either personally or professionally.
Ooh, recent success story.
Yeah, can be anything, even small things.
Yeah, well, I think as someone who's incredibly ambitious, I struggle with work-life balance. And I would say recently I've started carving out time in my life to start playing volleyball. And to me, that is a success. Just getting out and doing something that is in no way related to work, but also helps me be physically active and social, has actually made me a more productive person for work and also just happier outside of my career.
Nice.
So I consider that a success.
Have you played volleyball before now?
No.
Okay, so totally brand new sport.
Yeah. I mean, I've started a couple months ago, but still, that's recent enough for me to be I'm brand new.
And you're liking it.
I'm loving it. It's so fun.
Nice.
RVVA, Roanoke, something volleyball association.
Love that.
They're great. Everyone's super friendly. So.
Well, cool. Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Congratulations on that success. It is hard, especially as a business owner and somebody who is so ambitious and always working to kind of take that time to unplug. But as you just said, it can help you relax and then be even more productive when you get back to work. So that's excellent. Thank you again so much for being on the show today. It was lovely meeting you and learning more about R&D Coffee and all the projects you got going on. Yeah, thank you for having me. You're a joy to talk to. And thank you. As this was, one of the easiest podcasts I've ever done, and just happy to be here. Excellent. Well, we're happy to hear that. Looking forward to listening to your new podcast as well. And for everybody who is listening or watching, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any questions or would like to learn more about R&D Coffee, where can they go, Quincy? You can follow us on Instagram at Roanoke Coffee. So we sniped that handle and we've held on to it. Nice. And our website, also RoanokeCoffee.com, YouTube, Cafe with Q.
Rookie Restaurateur, getting ready to come out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts. Probably by the time this episode comes out.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see. It'll be soon, so.
It'll be soon, yeah. So you can check them out. And if you're here in the Roanoke neighborhood, you can go to the Wasena location or in Vinton. Also, you got that other location.
New store out in Vinton. Oh, there's just so many things to plug. I feel like I'm a walking advertisement. New store in the town of Vinton. It's, shorter hours, but more spacious. Great for large groups.
Oh, it's a great space.
Natural lighting. It's very pretty.
Yeah, great to study there. I've done that quite a few times, and it's been lovely. So, again, thank you so much for listening. Go check out R&D Coffee, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Access Success Podcast, produced by Access U, a division of Access Advertising and Public Relations. Find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram to keep up with what the world of education needs to hear, at Access U Agency, and connect with us at accessu.com. Let's do something big.